the Bell. Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell, here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast with our friends Massar and Matt Miller. Welcome to our audiences across Bloomberg Television, Radio Originals, and those folks streaming on YouTube. A 6-day win streak for the S&P 500. It's not going to be a 7th, at least based on the pricing right now.
But hey, I mean, I'm just looking at some of the weekly numbers, right? What we're talking about, up more than 3% on the NASDAQ, up about 2.6 on the S&P, Dow up about 1.25%. I mean, it's been
it is the best week that we've had since March, and still 6 days is the best winning streak that we've seen since November of 2021. You know, that's when a lot of things were hitting highs. So 6 days is still nothing to sneeze at, and I guess we could eke out. No, it would be tough to rise.
We might not rise today, but I wonder if this is a pause in what's been a pretty consistent move higher in equities. Just looking at volume right now, it is higher than the 10-day average. In the S&P 500, for instance, 17% above the 10-day average. As we know, we have quadruple witching today.
Yeah, quadruple witching, and that's distorting things a little bit. And of course, a holiday here in the U.S. on Monday, so we're going to have to wait to Tuesday to maybe see a little bit of firmer price action. Two things, though, that I do think are interesting, though. We talk about the valuations in the market, at least on an aggregate basis. And S&P 500 now in overbought territory. Remember, the NASDAQ has been in overbought territory for the last few weeks here. So that's going to factor in, I think, to some of the decision-making as to whether people continue to buy into this market. But there's not a whole lot in front of them. There's not a whole lot of economic data. You do get some Fed speak next week, but it might really not be until we get, I guess, until next month in earnings season where you start to have to really confront some of the hard realities as to whether these valuations can be supported. Closing bells here in New York on a Friday afternoon. Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 0.3% on the day, or about 100 points. The S&P 500 down about 0.3% on the day. The NASDAQ Composite down about 0.7%, and the Russell 2000 looks like it's going to close out the day down by about 0.7%. But as Carol Massar was just mentioning here, all the major indices in the green over the 5-day stretch.
Yeah, quite a run, but some selling here into the close on this Friday. I'm just taking a look at the S&P 500 for the week overall. Looks like your best performing name, Carnival, up about 21% this week. Bottom of the pack, Humana, it was down about 13%, Matt.
All right, take a look at what's gained and lost today in terms of the industry groups. If you pull up the SPX Level 1 GRR, you can see that utilities were up, materials were up, and consumer staples were up. So that looks pretty defensive, actually, and financials, consumer discretionary, IT, those are among the losing groups, and that's, I think, what you want to see leading for a sustainable rally. Not to say that, we aren't in one now, but it does look like defensive positioning.
All right, folks, let's get to some of the individual gainers on this Friday, and I'm going to start with Adobe. We were breaking down the earnings results last night. Oh my God, I'm glad it's Friday. Last night, Adobe at its highs today up about 5.7%. Finishing the day well off those highs, but still with a gain of about 0.9%. Did report 2Q results that beat expectations. It raised its full-year forecast. Optimism that generative AI features will spur demand for its software. So a little bit of outperformance in that one. Virgin Galactic, I think, Romaine, I saw you guys talking about it earlier on TV. Check it out, man. At its highs today was up 47%, finishing the day with a gain of about 16.5%. It's a $4.73 stock. So again, company announcing it's planning for its first commercial passenger space flight as soon as June 27th. So really marking the beginning of commercial space operations for the company. They had numerous delays, but we're talking about people who have spent and booked to pay six figures to fly on their ships. iRobot. We also saw that one a standout, pretty much finishing at its highs, up 21%. Amazon's 1.7.
They make robots?
Yeah, the room
They make vacuum cleaners.
The room does.
Yeah.
The Roomba.
Yeah, or they can wash your floors, play with your pets. They're pretty cool stuff. Amazon's
Play with your pets. Have you met my dog? She would devour that thing.
Yeah, a Catmobile.
It's really fun.
There are other problems that Roombas can have with dogs besides being attacked.
Don't tell you.
Amazon buying it, $1.7 billion deal to buy iRobot, cleared by UK regulators. Real quickly, NVIDIA, we did see this one. It was kind of a really strong performer earlier in the day, just up a hair, if you will. I just want to point out Morgan Stanley making NVIDIA its top pick, replacing AMD. And I think it's, up almost 200% this year. You know the story, Scarlet.
This incredible run. All right, let's take a look at the decliners here. Humana was the worst performer in the S&P 500 after seeing its health insurance customers are using more medical care than they expected. Perhaps as patients finally get surgeries and other care that they had deferred during the pandemic. And this could lead to a potential increase in expenses. And it echoes what United Health had said earlier this week. So both of those stocks falling. SoFi, biggest drop in 6 weeks, losing almost 10% of its value. 3 analysts turning cautious this week on the stock after it had doubled in value since mid-May. The U.S. debt ceiling deal, as you'll recall, included the restart of student loan payments, which was seen as a positive for this online lender. And Kava, the second day of trading did not go as well as the first day of trading because it doubled in value on the first day of trading. Today it slid. Of course, yesterday it had IPO'd at $22 and then it jumped to 100%. The restaurant chain is growing revenue quickly, but is still losing money, and the CFO has not indicated when it might turn a profit. Romaine?
Oh, okay. We're back to non-profitable companies again. Let's take a quick look at what's going on in the Treasury space. You did see some bear flattening on the day. We should point out the sell-off that we've been seeing in the Treasury space, that's been going on for a couple of weeks now. That pushed yields higher on the day and on the week here. We're up about 8 basis points on the 2-year. Similar story for the 5-year. A little bit less when we go out further out on the curve. But keep in mind, there are a lot of concerns, guys, coming up here about sort of the month-end and quarter-end rebalancing. Remember, when you had these big gains in the equity market and they're not matched by big gains in the fixed income market, you have a lot of pension funds, a lot of institutional investors that have to get back to their mandated allocations on a percent basis here. So that could mean that you could see some buying in the fixed income space and some selling potentially in the equity space as we get closer to the end of the month.
I just want to jump in here really quickly when it comes to something we had said earlier. I mentioned quadruple witching. I think I'm stuck at 5 years ago because it's now triple witching, Matt Miller.
Well, it was recently, right? But triple witching is stock options, index options, and index futures. Yeah. And there used to be also kind of single stock futures, but they didn't really trade, so there aren't anymore after the firm that ran that trading is done. So there can only be 3 witches at the most, maximum 3 witches.
Well, a lot of activity going on. Hey, I'm already thinking about next week. It is going to be a shortened trading week, and we do have Jay Powell going up on Capitol Hill, his semi-annual testimony on the economy. I think it's going to be very interesting coming off of the meeting this week, where I think a lot of people continue to scratch their heads about kind of what the Fed did and said, what they might still do. And so that'll be certainly closely watched, certainly the first day of testimony, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, I always feel like we always, say, oh, he's going to say something, then he goes there and he doesn't say anything, or he just repeats what he told us at the press conference on last Wednesday.
Well, maybe he'll clarify what he said at the press conference, because he did say rate cuts? No, you're going to have to wait a couple of years for that to happen.
Well,
and
he talked about the housing
unlikely.
Market, too.
He said the housing market bottomed, and it's back on its way up after, it did come down a little and bounce last month, but it's only 1 month. I think it's the Senate first this time, so the Senate tends to ask smarter questions.
Really? Okay.
I mean...
Smarter. I guess that's relative, right?
It's relative.
It's all relative.
According to sources and voices from
But you know what? Both parts of Congress ask a lot of grandstanding questions where they make a lot of statements, and there might be a question
They're
at
not
the
really
end.
even questions, right?
No, they're statements.
It's just basically a statement. And
they're
they
a platform.
Say, I'm sorry, pal, we're out of time.
Well, I want to go back, Romaine, to what you had discussed with Larry Summers, this idea that perhaps there was internal politics that Jay Powell was trying to get around or work through in his various comments at the FOMC presser. Why do you think it's so important for them to have a unanimous vote for the FOMC decision?
I've asked this question of several people here, and I think a lot of it is just optics, right? The idea is that they want to make it clear to the public and investors that, okay, we all agreed on this as one here. But it was easy to do that. For the first few hikes, right?
When did debate become such a bad thing? When did different opinions become such a bad thing?
Sister. I agree with you 100%.
The Bank of England is okay with dissension in policy votes. Why isn't the Fed?
I don't know.
It's kind of crazy. Hey, speaking of central banks, we've got 7 central banks meeting, including the Bank of England.
Any big ones?
Bank of England?
Bank of England. That's still going?
That's still going, yeah.
Ouch! Man, what's with you today?
I like it.
You're a little snappy.
That's it.
No, I love England. I love England.
Okay, I do
Yeah.
too. What's not
Where is
Big
that
Ben?
again? Is that in Europe?
Hard to believe, given his
It's in Great Britain.
I heard
but
you're
not in Europe.
I heard you're a big royal watcher, Romaine.
Oh, I love the
He's
royals.
a big fan of the
Yeah,
Sussexes.
you know me. I'm going to start listening to that podcast that I heard that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had.
No, it's too late. It's done.
What?
Well, they're breaking. They're
Wow.
you know.
You
all right.
can go back and listen to
All right,
season one.
Matt is saying enough kids. All right, we got to wrap. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You
Stay
too,
safe.
Carol Massar.
All right, you too, Romaine Bostick, and you too, Scarlet Fu, and you too, Matthew Miller.
Bye, guys.
All right, we'll see you again, same time,
Have a
same
great
place
weekend.
on Tuesday.